Before I start, I want just to do floor check. How many of you have worked and lived in China? A few. How many of you have worked and lived in China as entrepreneur? No one. Okay, I can just talk about anything I want. Yes, this is my topic, quite different from what Annalie told me to do, because as an entrepreneur, the best thing I can contribute to the crowd is really about my personal journey as an entrepreneur and innovator in China. So I was born in China, and I moved to Europe in 2000, and I moved back in 2007. And believe me, the cultural shock I got when I moved back to China is actually much more greater than the cultural shock I got from Europe. It's a little bit small, so I just talk through. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the first co-working space in China. It's called Xindanwei. It sounds very exotic to most of you. Just let me explain what Xindanwei really means. Danwei is a very old term, almost from socialist or communist time in China. So everybody given a job instead of finding one by themselves. So when you are assigned a job by the government, so this is your danwei, it's not your company. So you basically work there, live there, you have your entire life there. So I happen to grow up in such an environment where my parents actually work for this national-owned enterprises. Xindanwei has been a pioneer in co-working in China because it's the first one. And we have been pioneering also the co-working movements around the world. Up to now, we have got about 12,000 people, active member. And we have hosted more than 800 events in Shanghai, because we're based in Shanghai, and on creativity, entrepreneurship, and innovation. Actually, right before I came here, I closed Space the day before I came to Sydney, because I will tell you why. I established my new startup called Ask Lab a couple of months ago, and I'm running on a few projects already. So a lot of people ask me why I do that, because we have been just listed by Fast Company as one of the 10 most innovative companies in China. And so why do I give up everything and start everything from new? I guess this is something I want to share with you today. If you look at China, it's a very dynamic country, and a lot of things are happening. But one fact I found is that it's not very hard to be the first one. The world has no limit. The sky has no limits. The country is so dynamic, you can just come up with anything. And you find yourself pretty much the only one who's doing that. So this is an advantage, but also many disadvantages. It is a very competitive market. And we're living in a country where there's no guarantee for water, air, food. So there's really kind of huge mistrust, lack of trust in the society. And so people are not really, if you come up with something new, you kind of have to really take years and have a lot of patience to build a relationship with people you want to engage with. So, if you talk to VC, probably here in the West, and you come up with something really, really disruptive, and they will be probably really excited about it. But in China, they will just ask you one question. What about other people copy? What would you do? That's a fact. We're living in a nation where copycats are everywhere. And so after you educate the market and people understand what you're trying to offer, and you'll be surrounded by copycats, really in the speed of light. So as an entrepreneur, I found this picture really extraordinary, extremely inspiring. If you look at this guy, he's like a typical sort of immigrant coming from countryside, trying to find a living in a big city. And very often, these kind of people can't afford to have a normal housing, so they always live in some sort of temporary building, which is continuous spaces being demolished. So I guess this guy is just completely tired of moving, and he just found himself this caravan from somewhere and put it on his tricycle, so he can just take his home with him. I love this picture because it shows really the creativity of people who has no resources. So they have to just grab something and turn it into something. So I think that was pretty much the situation I have gone through. When I came back to China in 2007, because in Europe I used to work in interdisciplinary of creativity, arts, technology, and social study and urban study. And so it's really kind of crossing among different disciplines. It's not make me really, really excited because I don't want to lock myself or tag myself as an artist or anything. So that really gives me kind of energy to make a change. You know, if you're too much stuck into one world, it's very difficult to make change. So when I came back to China, I found that among the disciplines that I'm very much engaged with, nobody is talking to each other. I try to set up something, but a lot of people just tell me, you're just this kind of typical sea turtle. When we say sea turtle, that means people who have moved to overseas and study, work there, and come back to China. And it means in Chinese, it's 海龟. It's the same pronunciation as sea turtle. So you're this kind of sea turtle, which has a very negative meaning. Means you live too long time away from China, so you know nothing about the latest China. So you're trying to bring all this kind of Western thinking to this soil, which probably not really suitable for. And there is a lot of everybody telling me just give it up and do something useful. And I had a really kind of half-year depression, being surrounded by this kind of activity. But at the end, I feel like when there is a threat, and there is an opportunity. In Chinese, we have this word, 危机. You can always flip it and turn it into something useful. So I from the very beginning, I felt already, if you want to make a change, and you will be surrounded by ambiguity. And everything is not black and white, it's how you look at it. And so my journey really started from, after realizing this, and started to do small-scale tests among people who I thought would be interested in something I'm trying to set up. As a co-working, as a space, and as a community, and to just learn from there. Because you never know if this thing works until you start to test it. That's pretty much my mindset when I started, setting up a community for co-working. Another thing is very important is the resilience and accessibility. When I just introduced co-working to China, there was no such a word in Chinese. So I have to find a proper translation for it. And after I tried several translations, I just gave up because nobody really understands what I'm trying to talk about. And so my biggest challenge is really telling people what I'm trying to offer to them. We opened up a space in the Creative Park in Shanghai. If any of you have been in Shanghai, there are about 800 creative parks out there. And so we just found ourselves in one of the creative park and in the fourth floor building in a very industrial warehouse, and very difficult to find, but that was like the best offer we could get. And to just test out some of the ideas. And the first thing we did was, we need to organize ourselves surrounded by the people who believe in us. And so we started to organize events, typically in the direction that I used to curate in Europe. It's about new media, it's about technology, it's about entrepreneurship and creativity. So those kind of things, at that time, there was nothing going on in Shanghai, really completely cultural desert. So people really started to be very curious, and we attracted a lot of people coming to the events. And we didn't charge anything, and just basically offer them a kind of feeling that this is the co-working we're talking about. And of course, the co-working is not just about gather together, and it's also about spend more time on a regular basis and to share, to connect. So we don't know what to offer until we just spoke to some people and said, maybe you should organize yourself and offer a few desks for people who actually have no permanent workspace, and maybe they can just use the space over daytime to work there. So we come out with we call it desk membership. And so we started to test out this kind of membership. And 3 months passed. There was only one guy, actually one woman, signed up. And we thought there was something wrong. The people are not really buying it. Let's just think of something else. Instead of desk membership, can we think being a little bit more creative? And maybe people are not typically looking for a place to work, but they're actually, because their time is more very fragmented, and they need to work several hours here, several hours there. So maybe we can offer something, accommodating to this kind of fragmentation of people's time. We were located pretty much in the center, so maybe we could just, offer something based on time basis, so people can just come here and almost like a chip card. I don't know if you know that kind of transportation card. Every time you just stample, or like telephone card, and so we actually started to offer hourly service, and so we invented the term hourly member. So everybody can just purchase a few hours or 100 hours if they feel like to use a space, and but again we were not very sure how we actually control this, because do we have to buy a machine? Do I have to buy a camera? And we're supposed to build a community of transparency and openness and trust. If you put all these things around, it just doesn't make it feel good. So it's, again, a challenge, and we feel like maybe we should also offer people something more permanent, make them feel that they're not here just use for an hour and leave. So another product we come up with is chair membership. So it's more expensive than hourly memberships and less expensive than desk memberships. So we'll guarantee you get chair. Just like now. We have tried several different offers. So finally we found that chair membership is actually the most popular and most, both for the people who come here and also more suitable for our kind of service. And beyond the usage of the space, we also think about, hey, we're not here just to rent out space, and we have so much more to offer. We introduce people to each other, that's kind of connection service, and we also mentor people on actually where to find a problem, how do you set up solution. So this kind of also a kind of mentorship service, but it also tell when, we're not like the genius who knows everything. So, but what we know is everybody in the community, what do they do, what they're good at. So we actually set up a kind of peer-to-peer supporting infrastructure for people. So all these layers of service, so we just add on top of each other. So it becomes like a whole diverse and full spectrum of services, and people can just choose from. And it's like a buffet, so you just take whatever you like. And so here you get this picture of the man who is, every organ in his body has been treated. And another, in this way, we actually allow ourselves to fail probably in one product, but it might be a chance that the other product might, find its way. So this kind of resilience is a person who is doing something that is absolutely new to a market. We find it actually less risky, and we don't really launch in a like big scale. It's, we're a very small organization. We just keep it very small. When we find there's some problem, we just try to figure out a solution. If it really doesn't really help, we have a learning, we just give it up and we try a new one. So this kind of resilience, I find it typically very important for a country like China because everything changes so fast. Yesterday people didn't know anything about co-working. 2 days later, everybody talk about co-working. So it's so dynamic, and sometimes we're just we kind of have to keep ourselves on our Chinese Twitter, which is Weibo, and to really feel the pulse of what the crowd is thinking about us. So another thing, actually quite bold decision is we after a year testing out our concept, we felt like it doesn't feel right to stay in this creative park. We don't want to be locked in a box. We want to be accessible for more people. Because there's one thing I really don't want to tag myself into is we're a creative center. We're an art center. We're only open for cultural artists and cultural practitioners. Actually, deep in my heart, I believe everybody is creative and everybody has a potential to be creative. And so we are actually not trying to set up a barrier. We're trying to open this kind of center and platform to everyone who are curious, who are open, who want to connect, and who want to share. So location-wise, we have to make a new decision and where to locate ourselves. So after searching for some time, and we found a very old building and in the center of French Concession. Which is a very, very beautiful neighborhood. And we're surrounded by this very dynamic street life, with very chic and boutique designer shop next door, but also with 605 family living in one house, with this very dynamic sort of street life. We just love it. And this house is actually located right on the street. So we have a very big window. So whatever happening inside is also visible to outside. So when we organize things like movie nights or some artists come to show some stuff, and there are as many people outside as people inside. So it becomes a quite hot spot in Shanghai, and it becomes also very famous in China. So really from that moment, we have made ourselves very accessible for everybody. And another bold decision is we felt like co-working is nice, but take time to explain to people why they need co-working and what benefit do they get. So why don't we just try something that people really understand? So one decision we made was to turn our ground floor, which usually used as an event space, into a cafe. And so when people, when we opened our door, and all the neighborhood came to have a look and says, hey, what is this place? Is this an internet cafe? Is this a library? Is this a gallery? Or is it? I said, yeah, you can just interpret it into anything you want, but as long as you feel welcomed and come inside. So people, very curious people, they just, come inside and what can I buy here? We'll say you can order some drink. So people start to sit down and they start to observe what's happening around them. So it's not an ordinary cafe. It's not an ordinary gallery, although we have a permanent exhibition from local artists and designers. It is not a library, definitely not. And so what is it? And then people actually tend to know each other. They all kind of, have chats and very friendly. So a lot of people call this place almost like little utopian in this super consumerism world of Shanghai. So we like that. At least it's kind of created a kind of oasis in this, super jungle, of craziness. So anyway, I think these two decisions, and first moving to a place where on the street level, second to turn into a cafe, is really helping us to be understood, to be accept, and to offer people a chance to try out, not just try out coffee, but try out the different atmosphere, the different way people treat each other. And I'm very glad that I finally put me on Thursday and Friday instead of Monday, because when I'm in a new country, I want to do a pulse check. I want to understand how this dynamic is happening here, so I can adjust myself to this level. I mean, it's the same thing. We're human, and once we're in the environment, where it's welcomed and friendly and positive, and our energy is very different. So we're trying to just use the space to provide to everybody has this kind of positivity and friendliness, and so people will be able to open themselves, and will be able to trust, and will be able to collaborate. So yeah, I mean, this is very, very important, not just for Chinese context, but also internationally. And another very important thing is a very small startup is we don't really have too much resources. Actually, we have very, very little resources. And we can't do anything really without engaging our users. So from very beginning, I already try to engage people in our community to come up with content that we are, we're aimed to foster. So one of the things we have tried is just to set up a stage, encourage everybody just to show up their work. And I remember the first time we did this, and we really have to call every single person and go through a presentation with them. And they said, is it interesting? Do you think it's really worthwhile? It's not even finished. I said, but that's the point. If you're finished, then I don't want this anymore. So, really, because there was nothing like a bar camp or Pejakucha, nothing like that. So people feel very awkward to turn themselves from audience chair to the stage. So we kind of, really set up the whole environment and culture, and to encourage them to grab a microphone and talk about something they really truly care about. After 3 months of trying this, and we have a long queue of people who want to do this. And later on, I decided to give up my chair as a curator. I just let everybody curate their own thing. And so some people complained to me, said, hey, you guys in the beginning did some really cool stuff, like focusing on very experimental new media art and blah, blah. And now it's like everything. It's like a melting pot. It's like hot pot. I said, but that's a point. I just let my community member to choose whatever they care about. It's not like what I care about. So since then, events are all kind of, we still host some events, but 90% of events in the space are hosted by our member. And we actually encourage people to do that by offering them space for free. Another very important and bold decision we made is we have to charge people who come to the events. And in Shanghai, there were many museums offer this kind of art salon talks, and nobody charged a thing. And we were the first one who started to charge people money for listening to talks. And it was so awkward, and we have to really put a small tag there that said, including 1 cup of coffee and tea. So we really want people to appreciate this kind of knowledge sharing and to feel engaged in the conversation like you guys do now. We don't want to have a 20-year-old kid, come from university because it was too cold in dormitory. He just sit in the last row and fall asleep. You actually see a lot of people doing that in China. I'm very happy there's nobody doing that here. And so I try to get rid of the sleepy ones by charging them very minor fee, probably 5 Australian dollar or something. So offer everybody a cup of coffee. So it was actually a really bold decision, so that people who come here to share, so they always have a very engaging audience. So they can, really have a kind of very useful dialogue. So it's not like I share because I also want something in return from audience. It's not like I just want to make advertisements myself. So it's very an evolved and very engaged community. So that's actually a very bold decision, but people really took this as a chance to showcase something, what they're working on or they're truly care about, or introduce something they really find inspired. So it's more like, not like TED, it's like a mini TED, so people can just curate by themselves. And we want to go actually much further in this direction to engage people to come up with something new. So then at the end of the day, we felt like we have to categorize a little bit because the event is going in all directions, and we, as an institution, as an organization, we do have to put a flag there and say this is something that we really truly care about. So if you have ideas, projects in this direction, you're welcome to come to share. We don't want anything really commercial that doesn't really, resonate with the audience. So we come up with 3 categories. First one is called Spark. It's all about people who are working in creative fields, but who are exploring to look at their creative discipline in a completely new perspective. And Co-Uprise is all focusing on supporting startups and entrepreneurs. And Co-Impact is all about connecting technologists and connecting creative people, connecting business people with the people who are trying to make an impact, who are trying to set up a social project in China. So these are the 3 directions we want to foster. So it's not like an unorganized chaos anymore. It's not an organized chaos. So another very important thing we have done is to co-create with existing networks. So we're not trying to come up with something, not related to what's happening in Shanghai. There are a few things that we have achieved and we are very proud of. One is Xindanwei. That is a DIY. If I say hacker community, does it ring a bell? It's not a criminal community. it's a really kind of proactive people who want to make a difference by hacking, by DIY, building robots, building quadcopters, and all these things. So they're really crazy about using open source hardware, open source software to share knowledge and to build things together, really get hands dirty. And so we're a country full of engineers, but this kind of get hands dirty culture is losing in our community. So, and we actually collaborate with the people who are passionate about this and come here to organize a workshop and turn it into a hackerspace in 2010. And after that, there are about 5 or 6 hackerspace all all over the country. So now we've got our own national carnival, we've got our own open source camp and everything. So that's something that I'm extremely proud of. Another thing is the collaboration between us and a bunch of green people. So these green people, they're all working on the sustainability, on the wellness and healthcare. So they actually want to set up a hub with everything, even our cleaner is sustainably trained, and with everything in the office to be a showcase what a green office looks like. And they do all kinds of meditation and wellness and green stuff together. So that's another project we're very, very proud of. And without their knowledge, with their network, without their network, nothing can be achieved like this. So, another very crazy decision we made in 2011 is we found ourselves still pretty much, not driving the entire breakthrough change among our society. There are a few co-working spaces in China, but not a lot. So a lot of people just send us a lot of emails and telephone calls, try to have a coffee with me. I can't just sit every day, drink 10 coffee with 10 people. So I said, hey, if we want to make this market large, if we want to promote this open culture, sharing culture in a much larger scale, we'll have to educate our competitor. So I commit myself 2 weeks' time to write a book, to summarize everything, every mistake we have made, with the co-working space we built up, and it's called Coworking Menu. And I did it in Chinese because I thought it was more relevant for Chinese markets, and outside there were many people who are doing co-working space already. But our sponsor, Hayworth, it's an international company, and they give us a little bit of money to develop this app, because we don't want to print into books, and apps is more easily distributed. And so he said, hey, can you also do it in English? So I said, no, I can't translate myself. So, so he actually hired another translator. So it's now available in App Store in both languages. If you're interested, you can It's free, so you can download and read it. So after this, there are many, many co-working spaces actually benefited from this, and they started to write to us and thank us for this contribution, and they want to collaborate with us and to make this even much larger scale. So it's a really big success. So I just want to share with you an insight, which I got really personally very inspired, because a lot of people ask me, hey, you have set up a whole this great initiative. Do you own any of them? Actually, I don't. And so I set up the Hackerspace. At least we gave a birth to the Hackerspace. And now they're independent. And also the grassland concept is a very independent concept. They don't really belong to us. It's more like collaboration. But I was very inspired by this Indian, this model called the banyan tree model, which is invented, the term is invented by Indian architect firm. Banyan tree is a very popular tree you can see everywhere in India, and it basically grows out of one tree, and the branch actually grows into the soil and become an independent tree. So the entire banyan tree is actually one tree. And I was so inspired by this kind of nature phenomenon that, so if the mother tree actually died, and it doesn't really influence other trees, but they're all connected. And so it's more like if you're sick, and I can just use my nutrition and transfer it to you, so you can get support and help from me. But if you're dead, then it doesn't really influence me. So it's a very, very beautiful concept, and I think it's very inspiring also for a large organization to really kind of, both on organizational level and team level and network level, to really grow and harvest small ideas, and not necessarily really owning the idea, but really harvest the idea to make it into one big banyan tree woods. I've got, no time left, but I still have a few things to share. Another thing, I have touched upon this subject, is about the prototyping. And rapid prototyping becomes a very hip, buzzword. But that's what we do every day. Every project we do, we just launch it really, really fast. Almost like 2 weeks, we'll launch a new product. And also very small scale. We test among a few, very close community members, and it fails and doesn't really have a very strong impact. And so it fails small, fail fast, but we learn fast and learn big. So all these learnings are actually based on our daily practice of launching new products and killing old ones. So it's pretty much our everyday life. So this is kind of another insight I want to share with you, I see innovation as a learning flow. I don't want to call it learning curve, because it is not a linear process. It's actually very resonated with my Chinese culture. Nothing is going from A to B. It's always going like this kind of way. So you kind of allow room for mistakes. And you use every mistake as a learning opportunity, and then basically you let go, and you just continuously improve whatever you do. That's one of the biggest learning I have done. And the last thing I want to share with you is the reason that I actually gave up, not really entirely gave up, but I closed the space at Xindanwei and started my new endeavor. Because I had done some really, really deep self-reflection. After all these co-working spaces are popping up all over the country, I feel we're actually losing, the uniqueness of, when we just set up a company. So we're not just one only space anymore. So the space management is never our core competence. It was just, at that time, there's nothing like this. So we have to have a space as a carrier of our vision. So now there are spaces everywhere, so we can just focus on the thing we truly care about, which is about connecting people and cultivating people's creativity. That is also my deepest passion, and I'm crazy about turning people into some level that they actually unexpected. So I want to focus on this core competency and without worrying too much about if the toilet of the space is blocked again. So always envisioning a better future. So now I've just funded the Ask Lab, and this is a question I ask myself, which is how might we co-create solution through harvesting the connection between co-working, which is very much about startups and creative community, and the ground challenges faced by our society, by company, by NGOs, by government. So it's not just about connecting people and share stuff. It's also about how to unifying this kind of energy and enormous potential of creativity to really solve some of the grounded challenge faced by our society. So, I've been working with the governments, UK and Swiss governments, on engaging people who are data scientists and designer, and to hack the data. When I say hack, I'm not very sure. To help them understand the potential of the data and turn it into something accessible for every civilian in terms of agriculture growth, disaster risk, and water, and health, all these very important area. And another thing, we're also working with a company who are really looking into this area of open innovation. So Audi in China has no automotive apps, and so we actually engage a lot of designer and tech community to come up with the coolest app for Audi in China. So, so it's not just about providing solutions. I'm also looking into the era how we as a species, we all kind of, if we can align our goal together and have enough incentive and motivation, and we should be able to share much more than just me as a ground, a challenge provider. I'm just waiting for you to give me solutions. No, it's actually a co-creation process. So how do we actually sit down together, get inspired by all the way of thinking and inspire each other by different way of doing, and instead of just me, I'm giving you a problem, you give me a solution. So this is the things that I also want to ask you, which is the ask of the day. So if we enter into this Q&A session, I want some answers, not just questions. The question here is, how might AMP connect internal with external idea talents for co-creation? Thank you very much.